Hey everybody, welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You are listening to episode 9 for the week of December 30th, 2018. I am your host, Drew, and I am joined by Mr. Attacked by Cats, Will.
Drew, how the hell are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm surviving.
Dude, this is a little inside baseball for our listeners here. This is our second time pressing the record button on the show. We had this great thing going on. I was about to do my huge monologue about social media, and then you're like, we have to stop. My cat is just going crazy.
Yeah, no exaggeration, man. Like God, I love him to death, but god damn.
Cats are wonderful, mystical creatures, and I absolutely adore them. But when they want your attention, you better give it to them. So I'm sorry, man. Sorry, but he's so cute. I can't wait to meet him. He's such a cutie boy.
Yeah, no, he's amazing.
Well, this is a video game podcast, not a cat podcast. You are listening to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective, episode 9. Thank you so much for hitting that download button, everybody. Please make sure you're subscribing to us on either iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, or whatever your favorite podcast application is. Just do a search for us, Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective, and you'll find us there. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram using at WDGRPodcast. That's at WDGRPodcast. And Will, if somebody wants to follow you, how can they find you?
Will_gear.
And if you'd like to follow me, you can find me at Scion Storm. So, Will, what are you playing this week?
Tetris Effect. Still consuming my life when I'm not working. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
This is such a great game to just unwind with.
It is. And I've been doing what you do, where you kind of start with kind of an easier level. Mm-hmm. And it's a good way to kind of warm up. And like I said, my wife is destroying it in this game. So she's like, oh, yeah, like you should probably record me. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, me and Drew, we're definitely planning on it already. So I think she's a natural, and I could totally see her at a competition. No joke.
Really?
Man. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, I just didn't understand, or I just wasn't aware that she had this ability.
It just comes out of the strangest places sometimes, man. People just, they don't talk about it, or they're just really humble or whatever it is, and they just sit down and they're just naturals.
Yeah, I mean, I think she knew she was good, but I don't know if she was aware that she's like competition level good. So
yeah, you gotta. I want to see video. I absolutely need to see some video of this.
I feel like not only will that happen for sure, but I want to groom her into being like competition ready. Like I could just be her like coach.
I could see that. You gotta get like the Tetris tracksuit.
Yeah.
I'm getting like, I don't know, this weird combination of like your 80s like gym coach and like a Wendon characters.
Yo, yeah. Damien would appreciate that, and I would appreciate the 80s approach to this. It's just like a tracksuit with like a T block on the back.
I love it.
Just says like T-spin like ready.
Varsity jacket with like 2 L blocks. Oh god. Oh man.
But yeah, that's what I'm playing, man. Like besides that, I'm trying to kind of get back into Bayonetta 2. It's not on the back burner, but it's kind of like ready and waiting. Still in kind of like resume mode. That's
a game I want to spend some time with at some point.
Bayonetta?
Yeah. I'm really curious about it.
It's very fun. So action packed. But I don't think I've been playing much else besides that. I mean, of course, we just ran through Limbo. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Greece is next on the docket. So
nice. I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes. I may pick it up too. I haven't really decided yet, because for me it would be PC or bust. It's not. I don't have a Nintendo Switch yet, but I am feeling that itch. Like, I just want to run out and buy one.
Well, the key word is yet. You're gonna get one.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it's going to happen, but I'd like it to happen sooner than later.
Yeah.
So
just sell something.
Yeah, a kidney, right?
Sell your kidney, or just sell like your oven. You don't really need that.
I can totally picture Nikki coming home one day and she walks into the kitchen, the oven is gone.
You're just fucking dragging it out the door. I'll explain later. some like weird shady guys just waiting there, like, spitting out like David's like sunflower seeds, and you're just like trying to like load it in this fucking broken down truck, and she's like, "What on earth is going on?
Get back in the house!"
Yeah, get back in the house. This guy's just like, "Yeah, shut up." Spitting out the fucking seeds everywhere.
Oh, God. So, a couple weekends ago, my buddy Brad made a trip up from Florida to visit. I haven't seen him in a while, and I guess while he was at his parents' house, he found his old Nintendo Wii, and he just sent me a message. He's like, "Hey, man, do you want this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't have a Wii. I've always wanted to check it out."
Yeah.
And so we met up and got some breakfast together, and he gave me the Wii, and then I swung by GameStop, and I picked up a copy of Super Mario Galaxy and Metroid Other M, which I know Metroid Other M is not highly rated amongst Metroid fans, but the game was pretty dirt cheap, and I was working with a budget, so I decided to grab it anyway. It took me a couple weeks to actually hook up the system, but I finally did this week. And I have to say, like, I was really pleasantly surprised with Super Mario Galaxy.
It's supposed to be a very good game.
Like, I am not what I would consider a Mario fan. I generally am just absolutely terrible at platforming games. And Mario just never interested me. I just never, I've been playing Mario since, back on the NES days. I'll be over at my friend's house playing their copy. When I got my Super Nintendo, Super Mario World, and I just never really enjoyed those games. And
well, I feel like it's like one of those classics that is not a classic for everyone.
Yeah, and for me, it really wasn't a classic. Like, I would force myself to play it, but I wasn't enjoying it. This is the first Mario game that I can say without a shadow of a doubt I've thoroughly enjoyed playing. Like, it's an absolute blast, and the game mechanics are different. It's completely new and fresh feeling for me. I know the game is over 10 years old at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's definitely something that I want to go back to. I haven't played it in a couple days, but what a fun game! Like just a real surprising experience, and I'm looking forward to sitting down with it again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more about it because I don't know much about it. I just have this memory of the reviews being quite good for it.
I mean, from what I can tell, essentially the entire game is played on what amounts to small planets or moons or asteroids or basically, spherical bodies in space.
Okay.
And as you're running, like, you can run literally full 360 degrees around these objects. So when you're running downwards, you're actually going underneath and up over the top of it. Think of it in true 3D terms, right?
Uh-huh.
And in the meantime, you're using the nunchuck on the Wii with your left hand to control Mario's running, and then on the right hand, you can use the pointer to kind of pick up collectibles. You can use it to have him jump or dash or spin or whatever the situation calls for. And it's kind of strange because I've always thought of the Wiimote as just a gimmick. Like, when the system came out, I had zero interest in it.
Oh, yeah.
And now that I'm older, I really only have interest in it as a collector, not so much because, it's that great system I missed out on. It's just like, it's always been oh, you know what, man, I always wanted to play these Wii games. Let me check them out. But if I don't, who cares?
Well, like, if I remember correctly, wasn't this system really hard to find? Like, if you didn't, like, pre-order it, I know they went through, like, this weird, like, drought.
In the beginning, I think you're right.
Yeah, I definitely remember there was something going on with it where it was, like, next to impossible to find, like, a Wii.
That sounds about right. But, I mean, like, even then, it wasn't on my radar. I just didn't give a shit. I was playing my 360, and later, I got my hands on a PS3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't give a shit about it either.
So it's kind of nice now because, like, the Wii games are pretty easy to find for the most part.
Are they?
I can go into Goodwill and there'll be just stacks of them, and a lot of times they'll be shovelware. It's kind of tricky to find the good titles, but it seems like it's the type of system that's reasonably easy to collect for. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what else is out there. I threw up a post on Reddit asking for some input, and I got some really good suggestions, and I got to see what I can find and what's in the budget.
There's two I can think of right now that I think you should take a look at. One is, I believe it's Muramasa Rebirth, or
Okay.
Muramasa something. Oh, Muramasa the Demon's Blade. Now, I believe that was only for the Vita and for the Wii, but my God, is that game just amazing, like in terms of like visuals and art. I had it at one point, and I played a portion of it, and then I don't know. I think I got rid of it. I can't even remember now. And then Wii Sports is supposed to be like one of the best titles like ever for that system, and I believe it was like bundled like with a lot of the consoles.
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen just person after person just proclaim Wii Sports as just something I absolutely have to get, and I've actually heard good things about Wii Fit as well too. And I did get the balance board with all the other stuff it gave me.
I saw that.
So, I should be able to get those two games fairly cheap. Excuse me, my coughing is coming into play here. I'm going to mute, but go ahead and talk about a game.
How dare you? Yeah, so I if I remember correctly, Muramasa the Demon Blade was playable on the Wii U, because I don't think I ever had a Wii. So I must have found a way to play it on that.
Okay.
But I think that there was a way that you had to... I think you had to buy like the Wii, like, I don't know, nunchuck or whatever it was, like the Wii chuck. I don't know. They have like different names for all that kind of like all the peripherals.
Okay.
But yeah, come to think of it, I might have to like look into getting this game again, because I'm pretty sure the Wii U plays Wii games.
It does.
And it just has like a weird like sort of side to it.
Yeah, apparently this is Vita, Wii, and then Wii U is listed, but it's unclear whether it came out as a separate game. Well, no, it didn't. It couldn't have come out as... Well, the initial release is 2009. So the Wii U came out 2012, I believe.
Yeah, come to think of it, I could play this game. I like I said, I have to get like a couple Wii peripherals, I believe, to play it, unless they've updated it.
They're easy to find.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. I think I actually have most of them, because Lauren, I think, still has her Wii, and if she doesn't, I think there's a couple accessories that we might have left over.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm glad you got it. It's quite a, I don't know, I guess like a landmark in gaming. It's an important console.
It's something that I'm kind of pleasantly surprised with so far. So I'm looking forward to collecting for it further and seeing where this venture takes me.
Well, I'm pretty sure it has like a massive like library.
Oh, it's huge.
Like massive.
Yeah, let me see if I can find how many games they had. The games list. Wikipedia is going to be like, no. 1,528 games.
Yeah, it's a tall order.
Yeah. So, and that's not including, strictly North American releases. There are some Japanese only releases, or, some PAL only releases in this list as well too. But yeah. 15.
Other than that, though, I don't know if I can really think of anything that stood out on the Wii. Like I said, I have a Wii U, and I have like select games for that. But I guess like what was it? Zelda, the Wind Waker. Yeah, Zelda Wind Waker. I believe that was GameCube initially, and if it wasn't, then it was definitely the Wii. But that's the title.
A lot of people were recommending Red Steel 2. Yeah, here's another recommendation from Murasama the Demon Blade. Super Paper Mario. Just going through the list that people were recommending on Reddit. Twilight Princess, Zelda.
Yes.
Okami. The one you're talking about, I think, was GameCube.
Wind Waker?
Yeah. Yeah, which I have a copy of on the GameCube, and that's another series I have had just the damnedest time getting into. But
yeah, Zelda's a little tricky. Like, there are certain games that are kind of easy and accessible, but others are like a little bit more obscure, like Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask. Those are a little bit darker, right, and they're just kind of different. You have to love Zelda to play those. Yeah,
I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, I didn't grow up with it, so I didn't really love it. And now that I'm older, it's like I'm trying to appreciate what they are. Like, I get it. I just like I haven't found one that's right for me yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. What else? There was another recommendation too. A lot of recommendations for Capcom versus Tetsunaku, was it?
Oh yes, yeah.
Where the hell? I had it on my screen and I lost it. Speaking of cats, my cat is trying to bust into my office right now.
Open up.
He gets very upset when I close the door.
Mm.
And he's already busted it open once, and I can hear him, like, I can hear poor Nikki, like, trying to keep him away from the door.
Metro, stop.
It's actually Dax. He whenever I podcast, he gets impatient. I don't know why.
Well, it's a cat thing.
I guess so.
They don't like closed doors when somebody else is, like, on the other side, especially their owner.
Mm-hmm. That's the truth. Well, folks, if you want to tell us what you're playing, hit us up on social media with the hashtag WDGRNowPlaying, which is something that we've never used before, so maybe we'll start. I don't know.
Let's try it.
Anyway, if you want to tell us what you are playing, though, just shoot us a message. Hit us up on social media at WDGRPodcast. Tell us what your cat is playing, whether or not they're trying to break into your room, whether they're trying to knock over your shit. Whatever you want to do. We love to hear from you, and we did hear from you in droves this week. Thank you so much to everybody who took the time to write into us about a number of topics. We finished Limbo last week, and we asked for your thoughts on Limbo, as well as your thoughts about what games we should be playing next, and we got a lot of feedback.
We did. I was happy to see the amount of feedback that we received. It was a little overwhelming considering we don't get that much most of the time, but I think it's just something that will continue to grow, the more that we kind of reach out. So
hopefully, I really enjoy making the show listener involved as well too. So anytime you guys have anything you want to talk about, hit us up on social media or shoot us an email, wdgrpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, please.
So Patrick had a comment on Limbo, says that you guys hated Limbo for all the reasons that I liked it. It was both intentionally obtuse and incredibly good at educating the user in-game via level design with actual tutorials. And you know what? I guess that's something that perhaps we maybe didn't really grasp onto when we were talking about the game. There are no tutorials. There's nothing that tells you what to do. The game does lead you, but it doesn't, like... It leads you to water, but it doesn't tell you how to drink it,
Right. And I do appreciate that.
Yeah, and that was, I think, one of the better parts of the game.
Yeah, it was excellent in terms of how those puzzles and those level designs were executed.
Yeah. He gave a +1 for Inside, said that he played that with his wife spectating. So I know that's on our list of games to get to. Patrick also mentioned some of his favorite indie games: Firewatch, What Remains of Edith Finch, Bastion, Ori and the Blind Forest, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and Hollow Knight. He also mentioned pseudo-indie A Way Out, which is made by the developers of Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, but is apparently bankrolled by Electronic Arts.
That's correct. Yeah, there are some titles on here that I've played personally that are outstanding. Hellblade was incredible. And then Brothers, I've mentioned before, is easily like top 5.
Ori has been on my list of games to play at some point or another. I've always wanted to check that out. I know they have a sequel on the way too. A lot of people are super excited. I really enjoy Metroidvania games, and my understanding is that's one of the better ones.
Yeah, and it's quite challenging as well. I actually have it for PC because initially it came out, I believe, for Xbox One only, and now it's kind of migrated to, I believe, it might just be PC. I want to say that it came out on something else. I could be wrong, but I've played portions of it, and it's tough as nails.
Yeah, I don't mind a game that's tough as long as it's not like
fair.
Yeah, tough but fair, I think is fine.
Yeah.
He also mentioned that Firewatch is a game that we can play in a weekend, and dropped something called I Want to Be the Boshi.
Yeah, I'm lost on that.
Yeah, I did a quick search on it, and it didn't really... Boshi. It was a little confusing.
Just came up with like a weird, like obscure Chinese website.
Yeah, I guess it's something that's popular in speedrunning communities.
Oh.
If we're talking about speedrunning, this is definitely the wrong podcast.
Oh yeah, I'm not even like the slightest bit interested in speedrunning really anything.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, me neither. Like, I want to enjoy games, not like punish myself for playing.
Yeah, no, just so I can get like a time. No,
Yeah.
I'm all set.
Gina writes in, as for indie games, I would like to experience more story-driven games like Night in the Woods and Orwell and less side-scrollers. She talks about playing a good share of them recently, but hasn't experienced anything quite as unique as Child of Light and Ori and the Blind Forest. She says that side-scrollers are not her favorite format.
Very interesting. I mean, we kind of mentioned Child of Light, I believe, on a different episode as well as before the show tonight. Mm-hmm. And I am really just yearning to play that game.
It is just... I wish I finished it. I really do wish I finished it. I got damn far in that game. And from top to bottom, what a treat it is. The visuals, the art style, the music.
Stunning.
It's absolutely stunning. Every single bit of that game is full of love and care. And it's the type of game that definitely can be beaten in a short span. I wouldn't say... I don't think you can beat it in one evening.
Yeah, like a day.
I think if you were to play nothing else for a day or do nothing else, you could probably beat it in a day. Realistically, I would say over the course of 2 or 3 evenings.
Okay.
You know, you could definitely do it inside of a week.
I feel like it's like a storybook that just kind of comes to life. Like when you look at the gameplay, you're like, this is what I imagine like a children's book, you know, coming to life, you know, kind of jumping out of the pages and becoming something real.
That's an excellent way to describe it. And I think more accurate than you may realize because a lot of the characters talk in rhyme.
Yeah.
So
I think I was aware of that, like vaguely, but that is, wow. I'm so glad that I own it. It's just, I feel shameful that I bought it like, you know, practically when it came out and it's just been sitting there, but hey, I own it and you know, it's not going anywhere.
You know what? One thing that I've learned is you can't beat yourself up for buying something that you don't play because shit happens and you know what? You own it and you can always get back to it.
Yeah, and I still want to play it. Like the interest never died down. So
right, exactly. Vic says play Braid. Okay, thanks, Vic.
Short and sweet, man. Jesus.
Braid is on our list. Braid is. I'm pretty sure that's a game that I bought as well, and I think I dipped my toes in the water of it, and then like, this is all right, and kind of look back into other things, similar to what I did with Limbo. It was fine, but I really don't have any memorable moments with it that I can kind of call back on. So it's definitely something I'm willing to go back to.
Yeah, I remember I actually got it with Limbo on like a Humble Bundle that I mentioned on, I believe, the last episode. And it's gone now because like I think it just got deleted, so I'll have to buy it again. Yeah. But I remember that the concept was you play this kind of tiny character, sort of the equivalent of Mario size, and I think he's wearing like a blazer or like a suit or whatever. Yeah. And the whole concept is you can kind of rewind time and you can rewind like what you're doing. So it's a very neat concept that I don't think I've seen in another game before. So for that reason, I'm excited to kind of check it out.
Yeah, all that sounds very familiar. And at Joe Donuts on Twitter says, since you asked for recommendations, I'd like to offer up What Remains of Edith Finch as an option. It's the second time we've heard about that game tonight. Definitely in your indie wheelhouse, and there are a ton of great moments to discuss. He says it's similar to Gone Home, except you are looking around a house for specific spots that trigger vignettes about your various family members. Each vignette is a completely different style of gameplay and visuals. And we kind of dove into the discussion a little bit, and it said like that description to me sounded scary, but he said that's not the case.
So I know we mentioned Gone Home, and I think I brought it up on one of the episodes, and that's definitely something that we have to play. That game is kind of, it's creepy in a way, and it's mysterious, and it's sort of like I think I mentioned it's kind of like a sort of Clue whodunit kind of thing in some ways. Very interesting, very cool. And as far as What Remains of Edith Finch, if I'm thinking of the correct game, it's got something to do with, no, I was going to say something to do with ink, but I believe that's like the Black Swan something. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game. There's a game that's either this game or something to do with like a swan.
Okay.
And it involves like tossing ink, like blotches of like black ink, like all around like the world that you're in to kind of paint this picture of where you are. So it might not be that game. I think we have to just Google this. I think it's called like the Unfinished Swan.
Unfinished Swan?
So I believe that's the name of the game, and that's where you kind of toss like these blotches of black ink around to kind of just like figure shit out. I played like a demo of it, but yeah, it's definitely not the game that these guys are referring to.
It's the same developer.
Is it really?
Yeah. Giant Sparrow. Huh. So
well, that's cool.
Same. I'm looking on the Wikipedia, and they have the director, the writer, and everything. It's the same guys.
Oh, wow.
A couple different names, but for the most part, the same guys. I'll paste it in our chat here, so you can see. But it's the same team.
Oh yeah, even the logo for the game is like so similar.
Well, once I pulled up the wiki page and I saw the logo was like identical. It's like the same font.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, this looks familiar, and then sure enough. So very interesting. And it's a very strange thing too to see like them do the flip over to the Windows platform, the Xbox, as well. Because Unfinished Swan was strictly Sony.
Yeah, I believe it was like PS3. It's quite an old game.
And the Vita, and the 4, apparently.
Oh, okay.
But Edith Finch is only on Windows, PS4, and Xbox One.
Okay.
And it looks like actually the Xbox One release was the latest one. So very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to look into those.
We got some great recommendations from everybody. So thank you, everyone who took the time to write in.
Yes, thank you.
If you're listening to us and maybe something was missed, let us know. We legitimately have a list of games that we're keeping, and every time we get a recommendation, we add it to that list. And this list is growing. It's getting bigger. We fully intend on playing as many of these games as possible. I don't know how we're going to pull it off, but we're going to try.
Yeah, we're going to try somehow. Maybe we can just kind of throw it into the New Year's resolution that we're going to kind of mention a little bit later.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it.
Yeah, we certainly could.
Yeah.
So should we start with kind of New Year's thoughts, or should we kind of discuss like what we want to see from game devs next year? Because I know we've had quite a few sort of questions that we have.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, this being a show just days before the new year happens, I thought it would be kind of a fun idea to discuss not only New Year's resolutions for ourselves, but New Year's wishes for the gaming industry as a whole, and the types of things that we would like to see. And, as a gamer, I'm always looking to play as much as possible, but I recognize that I'm causing some of my own problems when I have a backlog that's a mile long. So, I was thinking about, all right, maybe I should come up with a list of games that I definitely want to beat in 2019. And then what do I want to see the gaming industry as a whole do? What sorts of changes do I believe they need to make? And what kind of things did you have in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're great talking points, and I will say that in terms of what I want to see next year from game developers and just kind of, releases in general, less hype around AAA titles. I mean, it's something that's always going to be there, and that's fine because I'm still into a lot of that stuff. But I think that there's just so much more care and love sometimes that goes into some of these indie games, and I feel like these developers that are creating them don't always get the respect and or I guess appreciation for what they're putting out. I mean, I think they do, but like they could be getting a lot more if there was more of a spotlight on those games. And I think, it's come a long way, so I can say that much, but I'm looking forward to stuff like that, because like when I watch E3 and, Gamescom and all of those shows, I'm paying attention to everything, but at the same time, a lot of games like, Abzu and things that kind of go under the radar for some people, I pay attention to.
Right.
And I think that's something that I'm really looking forward to is games like Grease, like more artsy, memorable, heartfelt kind of games is what I want to see next year. I think more than anything else.
Microsoft, in the past has done a really good job, I think, with the Xbox 360, bringing out a lot of indie games for the Xbox Live Arcade. And I feel like with one of the more recent conferences, they were trying to kind of rekindle that market. I don't know that Sony has really truly embraced that yet, but I've been really surprised by what the Nintendo Switch has been offering as far as indie releases lately. It seems like they've embraced indie games wholeheartedly.
It looks like it. I did some research on that today, and it seems to be quite a list. I mean, some of the games I really didn't find to be that interesting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm just excited for like another year to kind of kick off and see what's going to come out, because a lot of times there isn't even that much hype around indie games. They just kind of come out.
Right.
And at least that's the way that, I see it, is like you just see like a game like Grease just kind of pop out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I don't remember anybody discussing it. I don't remember trailers for it, nothing. It just kind of appeared.
Yeah. I mean, I came across that through social media. There was an advertisement on Instagram for the game, and I think I may have saw an article about it in passing as well too. And just nobody was talking about it, and then all of a sudden, you start digging, and there's subsets of the gaming community that are talking about it like crazy, and then there's parts of the gaming community it's not even on their radar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that AAA titles have their place, and I'm still excited for games like The Last of Us 2, even though I haven't played the first one, or beat it rather. But yeah, I think as a whole, that's what I would like to see. More emphasis on indie games, more emphasis on, I guess less DLC, less like premium passes that you kind of see with games like Battlefield. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep it simple. Let's try and get back to the old school way of releasing games that are complete. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to patch it or update it, make it for the better. Don't do it because the game's not finished.
I would like to see developers release games that are shorter in length more frequently.
I should have mentioned that. That's a great point.
It doesn't have to be an indie title, although the indie games do tend to kind of adapt this way of thinking, I think, a little bit more frequently. But I don't think there's anything wrong with a developer just putting out a game that's 10 hours or less. And preferably, if you're going to do something along those lines, maybe knock the price down a little bit. I really don't want to spend $60 in a game that's only 10 hours. But at the same time, a lot of times I'm spending $60 on a game that's 60 hours, and I only play it for 10.
Yeah, and I think the key is, and this is just kind of a thought that came to mind, as you mentioned this, there are certain games that are really long, right? Like 40, 50, 60 hours, for the whole like campaign, all the side stories or side quests.
Yep.
And that's fine. But you got to make sure that game is like addicting, right? Yeah. Because I feel like there are games that are that long that aren't addicting, that are just long for the sake of not really being long, but like they're just so big and they're so ambitious. And again, that's fine, but like I've played some of those games, and I'm not going to really mention any particular titles, but I've played some that are just big games like that, and there's no pull. There's no, magnet. There's no sort of like magnet effect where it's kind of bringing me back like it would for a game like Skyrim. So Skyrim, for me and for most people, it brought people back, and that's a huge game. Like I think I put like over 100 hours into that game, just doing side quests, the main story, roaming around, and there was a draw to it. But like I said, don't make these games that are super long that don't necessarily have a draw. And it could just be me, but I feel like it's kind of clear that there are some games that don't have that, and they're just large for the sake of having like all this extra stuff to do, and they don't have that kind of magnetic pull that I think is needed for a game that is that kind of size.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, I think. And like I think of TV shows sometimes that overstay their welcome. Maybe the sitcom
Sure.
that runs 3 or 4 seasons too long, or on the flip side, maybe a show that only gets 2 or 3 seasons, and not necessarily they were canceled, but a creative decision was to end them. Like Breaking Bad is a show that lasted 5 seasons, and it was a creative decision for the show to end, and that show had a very tight story arc that I think really worked out. And I think if they went beyond 5 seasons, it really would have watered it down. On the flip side, you look at a show like Walking Dead, which quite frankly has, been kind of paddling for way too long at this point. It's just not working out, I don't think, anymore.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to kind of compare, TV shows with games. It's the same kind of concept. Sometimes it just needs to either die or it just needs to be like shorter. And I think that you and I can both agree, not even to do with our lifestyles being busy and having these giant backlogs, but I think it would just be better for games to be really meaningful and just fucking shorter.
You just burn hot and fast, and then that's it. Have a super memorable short experience. I think will stick with people longer than something that's drawn out over the course of 70, 80 hours or whatever.
Right. It's like a part-time or even a full-time job with some of these games.
Right. So,
and granted, like they're masterful, they're masterful. Like games like Witcher 2 and 3,
totally,
and Red Dead 2, all that kind of stuff. Like huge games, and they're amazingly well made. But at the same time,
I think there's this need that a lot of developers feel to make games that are that long, and they don't have to. Like, not every game needs to be the length or the size of Red Dead or The Witcher or even like Grand Theft Auto.
You're right. I think it is a game dev thing. Like they feel the need that it needs to be long for like replayability.
Maybe it's not a game dev thing. Maybe it's a publisher thing.
It could be.
We don't know what kind of strings companies are pulling. I know there's a lot of pressure from like EA and Bethesda on the actual developers.
Oh yeah.
Activision, all of them. So
the
it's
bank rollers.
Yeah, and you have this pressure to deliver, and I've heard stories. I'm not in the industry, but I've heard plenty of stories. I'm sure you have too. So I think there's a way for a shorter experience to still be profitable and more memorable. And you know what? Hey, if you have a lot more story that you want to tell, I don't have a problem with you releasing it as DLC, provided that you wrap up the story that's there. I don't want a cliffhanger. I don't want to be like, oh, wait for part 2 for another $20. I want to make that decision. If I like your game and your game is good, I'll spend the extra $20 on it to get the DLC if the quality level matches it. But I'm not going to I don't want to feel obligated to buy into it.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Like, I have no problem with DLC. Just make it worthwhile.
Right.
Don't make it too expensive. And I have just zero problem with that. Some people do. Some people have a huge problem with DLC, as well as like pay to play for like certain characters and things like that in fighting games. Yeah. And I get it. Like there's an argument to be had there, but it's just kind of the way of the industry. It's an expensive hobby.
It is. Definitely is. What's the next topic?
Well, I guess we could kind of move into New Year's resolutions for the both of us.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned it before. Drew and I kind of talked about how we want to beat games. And, as simple as that sounds, it's not going to be a simple feat. It's going to be kind of a challenging one, but we're up for the challenge. And, we have quite a few games that we're going to try and get through. I know, Drew, you made a list, didn't you?
I did.
Let's hear the list.
So one of just to give a little background here, there's a subreddit that I followed about 1.5 years ago called 12 and 12. Their goal was to play 12 games to completion in 12 months. And then from there, what you can do is basically you break it down. Okay, in January, I'm going to play this. In February, I'm going to play this. In March, I'm going to play this. And then you can have like your secondary or your backup games in case you beat the first game quick. So I've been following this. My intention is always to do it, and I never forget. So here we are. I have a list of 12 games. And a lot of these games are games that I have already begun in some capacity and have never finished. Most of them are, actually. There are a couple games that I've purchased that I have not started yet, which was intentional because I wanted to finish some of the ones that were already in progress. And there's a couple games here that I want to buy that I just, I'm waiting to kind of clear some backlog on. So,
well, let's run through them.
Top of my list is Horizon Zero Dawn.
Okay.
My goal was to have finished this by the new year. I do not believe that's going to happen. Unfortunately, I've just had a lot of stuff going on with the holidays and trying to get some stuff done around the house that I kind of put off after we moved in, things of that nature. So I've been pretty busy. I have not played Horizon in about 2 weeks, which is a little bit disappointing. But planning to put some more time in on that soon, hopefully. Prey is a game that I also started, and I feel maybe about somewhere between a third to a half of the way through. And very enjoyable game. It is this very interesting cross between Dead Space and BioShock.
Okay.
It's a first-person shooter. You have your upgrade path for your character is kind of similar to that in BioShock, where you can kind of unlock these different nodes with different powers, that sort of thing. But it has the atmosphere of Dead Space. You're in outer space. You're dealing with this kind of unknown alien organic matter type thing. I think my cat's trying to bust in again. The the music is
Dax.
The music is also done by Mick Gordon, who I've gushed about in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, buddy. Hi, Dax. Oh, I have both cats now. This is great. We have visitors on the podcast, everybody. So that's something I want to get back into.
Yeah.
Nier Automata is a game that I picked up on one of the Black Friday sales. And I've installed it in my system, but I have not begun it. I do like RPGs, and I don't know why I was under this impression, but I thought it was shorter than it is. So I guess it's a pretty lengthy game, and I might have shot myself in the foot there.
Well, it looks amazing. I actually own it, and I played like an hour or so, and it's good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to spending some quality time with it. I think it's going to be a real treat. I've heard nothing but positive things about the story and the action, and it looks just stunning. So it's something that I want to just give the proper attention, though. I really don't want to divide my attention on that game. I want to just focus on that and that alone.
For sure.
Similarly, I'd like to do the same with God of War, the most recent one that came out this year. I believe that's going to be a shorter experience. I should be able to beat that fairly quickly, I think. But that remains untouched at this point. I'd like to pick up a game called Dark Cells, which a lot of people in the indie community have been raving about. It's a Metroidvania game, but it's a little bit more on the aggressive side as far as the style goes.
Isn't it Dead Cells?
Dead Cells, I'm sorry. I don't know why I wrote Dark. I made this list in a hurry. But yes, you are correct. Dead Cells. My mistake. I'm actually updating my list now. But yeah, that game looks awesome.
Yeah, it does. I actually watched the trailer for it today.
It's something that I'm hoping that I can pick up for a Nintendo Switch after I get one. So I'm kind of holding off on that one for the moment. And plus, I have a ton of shit to play anyway. So
yeah, you're fine.
Same thing with Grease. We've gushed about the visuals of that game a couple times in the past few weeks. So that's on my list of must plays in 2019.
Is John Travolta in the game?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Maybe as an unlockable. Get a character called Lightning or something.
Yeah, some pink ladies.
I also want to go back and finish Sonic Mania. Picked that up on sale sometime around the summer. And what a fun game, but I never beat it. So I'd like to get that out of the way. Persona 5. That is just a daunting game. And
Indeed.
I got about... I'm in the middle working on the second dungeon, I think. And this is probably 25 hours into the game at this point.
Oh, easy.
Yeah. So that's something I would like to go back to. I think it's probably going to be 100 hours or so total. Mass Effect Andromeda is a game that I started when it came out, and just I'm a huge Mass Effect fan, and I fully intend on beating this game at some point. But what happened with me was I got wrapped up in the multiplayer. Actually, I thought the multiplayer was a lot of fun, and then shit hit the fan with schoolwork, and I had to put it down, and I never went back.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'd like to go back and actually finish Super Metroid for the SNES. Never beaten that game.
Played it a bunch. You're going way back with that one.
Going way back. I try to put some older stuff on here. You know, I have a pretty crazy catalog of games, and there's a lot of them here on my shelf that I'm, oh yeah, one rainy day I'll play them. Well, I need to start putting some commitments down on paper. So I figured this is a good one to start with.
Yeah.
And similarly, there's a PlayStation game that I just picked up recently called Fade to Black. It is a sequel to Flashback: The Quest for Identity, which is one of my favorite games of all time. And it's a 3D version of that story, with a second chapter of it, basically. I don't really have high hopes for the game itself, but I want to experience it because it's a franchise that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have time after all that, I would love to just go through and play the entire Command & Conquer series from beginning to end.
Gosh, this is becoming a daunting list, Drew.
It's a daunting list, and I guarantee you I'm not going to do half of it, but,
A boy can dream.
Boy can dream.
Well, I like the list. I think there's a lot of variety.
I tried to mix it up, there's a lot of different check boxes I wanted to hit.
Mm-hmm.
I like RPGs, but RPGs are also like the bane of my existence at the same time because they are the exact antithesis of what I was just talking about with the gaming industry a moment ago. I want them to release shorter games, and here I am listing, 4 or 5 games that minimum are 40 hours.
Easily.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Well, it's a good list. I think that mine is, I guess, somewhat similar. Like it's kind of a mixed bag of, RPG stuff and indie games and AAA titles. So it's going to be a equally daunting list.
Sure.
A few titles that I can think of would be Vanquish for PS3.
Okay.
That's developed by Platinum Games, one of my favorite development teams.
Mm-hmm.
They specialize in action games, so they developed Nier Automata. They did. Oh yeah, they did Metal Gear Rising. They do Bayonetta, and they did Vanquish. So it's a short game, but it's one that I wanted to kind of incorporate because it's super cool and it's short, so I know I can get it done.
Nice.
Strider for PS4 is kind of essentially an indie game, side-scrolling kind of beat 'em up sort of situation.
Is this the same Strider as like Strider Hero? I think it was.
Yes.
It is.
So, oh yeah, I'll have to send some gameplay to you so you can kind of check it out. But it was
yeah, definitely
something that came. I think it was like a launch title for PS4. It was something that came out shortly after that. Let's see what else I've got. Child of Light that we mentioned before. I actually need to finish Bastion.
Okay.
So I started and played most of that, and I just never finished it.
We can do that one as a new playthrough if you want, because I've been wanting to hit that up as well.
I would start that over. Gravity Rush 2.
Oh, that's supposed to be really fun.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun, and the animation and the way that game plays, just in terms of like fluidity, it's really something special. Nier Automata is definitely up there. Mm-hmm. I need to finish and play Bloodborne. I've got to finish the Dark Souls 3 DLC. I'm so close to getting it done. Horizon Zero Dawn. Getting probably close to 12 now. And Assassin's Creed Origins, which takes place in Egypt. I played a good portion of that game. Probably maybe 3-4 hours. So not that much because it's probably like a 40 to 50 hour game if you do everything.
Okay. Yeah.
But it takes place in Egypt, and I love the whole storyline and concept and the sort of time period that it takes place.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if I were to name one more, I guess probably Red Dead 2.
And that's one you've already put a little bit of time into.
A little bit of time. Not nearly as much as it would take to kind of beat it. But, I think some of these games aren't really meant to necessarily be beat. They just need to be played. I just need to sink my teeth into, most of these games. And, if I can beat the campaign and not all the side missions, then I guess that still counts.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a reasonable goal. Unfortunately, that's like... That's the problem I have with a lot of these types of games. Horizon, as a prime example, they have all these side quests. And the side quests, although they're adding to my playtime and they're keeping me from beating the game, but god damn, they're fun.
Yeah. And I feel like Tetris Effect is a game that, can, of course, be beat. You kind of unlock every level and you just beat it, essentially. But even that would kind of count because, like, I'm at a point now where some of these levels are getting quite difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's why I rolled it back to easy, because I wanted to enjoy the game and not, like, just throw my controller.
Yeah. I could see that happening. It can be quite frustrating.
Yeah, that's what was starting to happen. It was just like... I'm playing it on normal. I'm just like, why can't I get past this? And it's because I suck at the end of the day. But, it's definitely, like, I feel like with Tetris Effect, it's a game that you can kind of pick up and play.
Yeah.
You don't have to stress about beating it because there really is no end. Puzzle games have that beautifulness.
The longevity
about them. So, so we also talked about classic systems that we wanted to see in 2019, because it's going to happen. Somebody's going to come out with a new classic system next year. That seems to be the rage, right?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think is not going away. I mean, they've done it, 3 times now, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, actually more than that if you start counting the Sega flashbacks, the Atari flashbacks. Now there's like an Amiga one, there's a Coleco one. So the 3 major releases have been NES, Super NES, and the PlayStation.
Yeah, suppose you're right. I wasn't aware of all of those releases, and I know they're doing a lot of other things too, like miniature Pac-Man machines, and like the whole concept of going back in time and kind of shrinking things down is something that's been going on for actually quite some time now.
Yeah. So, let me hear you. What were you thinking should come out next year, and what games would you like to see for it?
Well, I know that there has been some chatter and some rumors, some pretty strong rumors from what I gather about the miniature Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
So that's a game console that holds, again, a special place in my life and my memories because it was I think it was the second console that I ever got. And my God, for me, it was just such a great system. And everybody had it. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody's talking about, Blast Corps and, Mario 64 and Zelda and all those kind of classic titles and Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. So I think for me, I would love to see that come out this year or next year, rather. Mm-hmm. And, even if it's at like mid-year or end of summer or fall, like that's fine. Like make it right. Make the titles right. Don't put a bunch of weird shit on there like they kind of did for PlayStation. And, let's see some of those classics that we know did well. GoldenEye, Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. I'd like to see some other stuff like Turok Rage Wars, Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. I loved that game. So it's going to be quite a wish list, I think, for me, that I know that like not every game is going to be on there. If they are all on there, then that's like an immediate pre-order. Mm-hmm. So I guess in some ways it does kind of depend on the lineup. And I thought that I would never say that because I really appreciate what they've been doing. And I think it's a novelty thing. And it's a collector's piece. But the lineup for PlayStation definitely had me a bit disappointed. So I think a lot of that now is going to be a big factor for a lot of people. And unfortunately, I think the PlayStation kind of had a part in creating that mindset of like, what's going to be on it before I buy this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I want to see.
That's a good choice, man. I think the N64 is a holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts.
Yeah.
And a lot of the games that you mentioned, I think a lot of the games that you mentioned are really like for me that was one of the first systems that Nintendo did that wasn't like paved by Nintendo games. Games like GoldenEye or Shadows of the Empire or Pod Racer. These were third-party titles.
Yeah.
And it's Nintendo is usually thought of as like a Nintendo system filled with Nintendo games and some good third-party titles on the side. And like when I go back and I think about Nintendo 64, I think a lot of people's favorites are those third-party titles.
Yeah. Yeah, they
games
absolutely
like
are.
The ones you listed, or like Hydro Thunder or No Mercy, or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot that I can think of, and there's a lot of shitty ones too that would be like really funny if they put like Forsaken on there and like War Gods.
Oh God.
I mean, some of those games were just strictly for like rental purposes.
Yeah, totally. I would actually go a different route with my classic system. I would want to see a TurboGrafx 16. And for good measure, throw some of the CD games on there too, because there were some really good CD games that were out for the TurboGrafx CD and for the Turbo Duo. And I think there's a hell of a list you can make.
What kind of games come to mind?
Well, I mean, I would include... so I have a list... I think I got like 15 games here. I would put Keith Courage and Alpha Zones on there. Despite it not being the best game, it's the game that was packed in every single system that they sold. So it is the definitive launch title for the TurboGrafx, and I think it needs to be in any collection that you have. I would also include Bonk's Adventure and Bonk's Revenge. And for good measure, you might as well put Bonk 3 and Air Zonk in there as well, too, because those are all part of the same franchise. Air Zonk was a shooter featuring the Bonk character. It was a very bizarre thing. But the Bonk's Adventure and Bonk's Revenge was kind of like the TurboGrafx mascot and the quintessential platformer for the system, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of really great shooters on the TurboGrafx and the Turbo Duo. Lords of Thunder, Gates of Thunder. You have Blazing Lasers is another great one. Classic game Galaga. They did a version of that for the TurboGrafx called Galaga 90. It's one of the better versions of the game. And then we have a couple cute-em-ups that are like in the stratosphere as far as the prices go. Magical Chase and Cotton are two of them. I think they should include those so that the floor on the reseller market drops out.
Now, the Magical Chase is the game where you have to like basically sell your house to afford it, right?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay.
That's the one. And Cotton is not far behind it.
Now, I see here you put Bloody Wolf and Splatterhouse. Now, Bloody Wolf, is that a fighting game, or am I thinking of something else?
Bloody Wolf is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's a military kind of shooter. I don't want to compare it to Contra because they're not the same at all. Contra being strictly a side-scroller, this is kind of like almost like an isometric kind of thing.
Okay.
Because you can move up and down in the playfield, but you're still primarily moving left and right. And it's just a really tremendous game. I think that has an interesting story for the era. You start out, trying to rescue the president, and then the mission kind of goes south, and then stuff happens. And without revealing too much of the plot, I do think it's worth playing. But it's also forgiving too. Like you can die, but there's infinite continues. So while your weapons and your health may reset, it's easy to beat the game, in an afternoon if you really, really wanted to.
Sure.
So really well done game. I think it plays well. It's got good sound, very memorable music to me, and overall a pretty good story. Splatterhouse is more of a gore fest. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it on other systems where you have your archetype hero, I guess you could say, even though he looks more like a villain. He's a dude with the hockey mask, and he wields a 2x4 and just basically just beats up, demons from hell.
Sounds like Manhunt in a way.
Yeah, I could see like that being like kind of like a successor to it.
Well, with like the mask and the 2x4, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. Splatterhouse is, side-scrolling beat-em-up game at its core. Really not much else to it. Unfortunately, it's only one player. It's kind of a shallow game. I can't really say it's one of my favorites, but it's kind of identified with the system. They did make Splatterhouse on other systems as well. Genesis, I think, was the most notable one.
Uh-huh.
But most people, when they think of Splatterhouse, or when they think of TurboGrafx, a lot of people think of Splatterhouse. And then you have a great version of Castlevania on here, Rondo of Blood, which is one of my favorite versions of any Castlevania game. It's incredibly difficult, but just gorgeous graphics, amazing sound, because this is one of the first CD games that ever came out. It's just absolutely tremendous. Definitely worth checking out if you've never played it. I know there's ways to play it now on like PSP and PlayStation 4, and there's it's been included as like a pack in some other titles, so it's worth your time. And then finally Ninja Spirit, which actually no, I missed a couple others too. I'm sorry. I know we're running out of time, but I could talk about this all day.
Yeah, it's quite a request. I don't know if I can see it happening. However, we could be pleasantly
it'll
surprised.
Never happen. It'll never happen. Nobody's going to buy this thing. That's the thing. Like, you got to look at the bottom line, and nobody's ever going to buy it. But like, the TurboGrafx had this wonderful library. I also included Legendary Axe 1 and 2, Newtopia 1 and 2, which are great Zelda clones. Blazing Lasers is one of the best shooters I've ever played. Ninja Spirit is a great side-scrolling game with ninjas. So, I mean, it's instantly like 10 times better than any other side-scroller. It's got ninjas in it. I mean, the TurboGrafx either goes one of two different ways. Either the game is tremendous and has stood the test of time, or it is aged like crap, depending on what game you choose. And some of those games like are still incredibly playable today, and then some of them are just like, I pop them in, I'm like, what the fuck were they thinking? How did this even get released?
Yeah.
There's really no in between. So, but yeah, that's my list.
Yeah, it's quite the list. I think it would be interesting, if it ever were to happen, which I agree, I don't think it will. It would be kind of a weird, I think, reception.
Yeah, I mean, there would be a very small subset of the community that I think would go crazy for it, and then it would go largely ignored otherwise.
Yeah, I think so.
So, but my hope is, with Nintendo owning or having distribution rights to a lot of the stuff on the TurboGrafx, because a lot of these games were on the Virtual Console for the Wii. Perhaps we could get it, something that they put out, because they have a pretty cozy relationship with Hudson. Last I knew, and Hudson was very involved in TurboGrafx.
Huh.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, but, the horizon looks good, so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
We'll get something.
So, Will, I feel like we have a lot more to talk about, but we're running out of time.
We are, and there's a lot more to chat about for sure.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we are going to call it a night from here, wrap things up. Folks, thank you so much for downloading the show. Once again, be sure you're subscribing in iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Google Play, anywhere that you get your podcasts. And let us know what you think of the show. Shoot us an email at WDGRPodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Facebook, on Twitter, or on Instagram, also at WDGRPodcast. And Will, if somebody wants to follow you, how can they do so?
Will_gear.
And if you'd like to follow me, hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at ScionStorm. We are going to sit down and figure out what our next game will be for our indie playthrough. And once we have an idea of that, we'll let everybody know. And hopefully you guys can join us in the playthrough as well, too. We'd like to hear what you think of the game and get your feedback and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. It's going to be a tough choice because we have a lot on the list, but we'll...
Yeah.
It's going to be like rolling a die.
Maybe that is actually what we should do. Maybe we should just take all these names and just throw them in like a random number generator and see what pops out, because
Sure.
unless we just prioritize games that we already own.
Yeah, that's probably the safer thing to do, so that way we don't end up saying like, oh fuck, it's like another game that we have to buy now.
Right.
Because that could happen with our luck.
Yeah. I mean, looking through the list that we have, I mean, there's a few games that both of us already own. So,
well,
I don't know.
We'll see it now, Drew, is like every time that we get a game, it's like you're opening a door that you have to open like just a crack, and you shove the game in. You're like, all right, close it quick. Because it's just going to be like this avalanche of like games that you just keep hoarding.
That's why you got IKEA shelves, man. They can hold an immense amount of crap.
It's key. Get those Billy bookshelves.
I got Billy's for days.
That's the episode right there. Done.
Perfect. Oh, man.
Well, Drew, that was a great episode.
Yeah, man. I had a lot of fun talking about it. Sorry my voice started going towards the end.
Hey, it's fine.
Hopefully everybody else is okay with it. And if not, well, wait till next week, because I'm sure I'll be better.
Yo, yeah.
I hope so anyway. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Stay tuned.